Hey guys, Bailey here from Carp Dreams, and as you can see, the weather's pretty bad. We're joined by a very special guest today who we're just waiting to turn up, but I haven't even got out the van yet, the weather's got so bad. We're at a cracking venue as well, which is only new to Essex, but it's Myths Pool, a great venue, and there's full of beautiful fish. I really hope we can get a couple of these. There's two 40s in there, there's loads of 30s, and there's loads and loads of really beautiful 20s. So I really hope we can either get one of the 20s or maybe even one of the big ones, or any fish at all really, because they're all stunners. I'll see you guys when we've got our very special guest with us.
Hey guys, so yes, that is right, we are joined by Billy Flowers, who was part of the England Carp Team when they won last year in Spain. Well, that's some achievement by anyone's standards. Thank you for joining us down here at Myths Pool today.
You're welcome, mate. Nice to meet you. Nice to see you and be here.
It's alright, thank you for letting us on here anyway. But can you just tell the viewers at home just a little bit about Myths Pool?
Yeah, so Myths Pool, as you said, we're here today. The lake itself is 2.7 acres. It's got 8 pegs around it, quite evenly spread, so every angler's got a nice chunk of water. At one end is the shallow end. It's got an island that separates it between the shallow end and the deeper end. The stock in here, we've got about 100 fish. We've got 2 of the big girls that are known fish. They're 2 40-pounders. We have 10 30s. They're the right time of year. A lot of 20s, and the rest are sort of doubles. And there's a few high singles, but they're like the future fish. Really nice, scaly, pucker little fish. But I say some are only sort of 8 9 pound. Some are low doubles, but they're absolute minters. And give it a couple of years, they'll be well up there with some target fish for people.
So there is a fish in here called Flowers Fish, and can you explain the name for that?
Yeah, well, like I said, we're here today, and I'm actually in the peg that I caught. I actually was lucky enough to catch that fish and name it. So what we done for the public, we opened it on the 15th of April last year, and what we said to the members of the public and who join it and the members, any fish that's caught, and any decent fish that's been caught and hasn't been named, they get the right to name it. So obviously we introduced the two big girls, which when we introduced them, again, they was 40-pounders, and we was hoping they'd come out at 40 pound. So a few of the lads, over the winter, we was doing some work parties on there, putting up the otter fencing, which we've got all around the lake. The swims, as you've seen, we've done a lot of work on the swims. Yeah,
they're beautiful swims as well.
Yeah, so the lads who helped muck in, they used to get to fish it before we opened it in April. And one of the lads who actually caught the first 40, was actually a good friend of mine, Elliot. He got to name it El's Fish. He caught that in Jet, so that's now called El's Fish. Caught that at 42 pound. But then, so yeah, this other 40 that we put in, but still hadn't been out. So everyone was like wanted to see it, wanted to catch it, and everything. So 3 days into the opening season, I managed to fluke it out in the margin, and quite close in. It's 41.6 it went, and everyone was like, "Oh, what are you going to call it? What are you going to call it?" And I was like, "You got the privilege to name it." And then I've never actually named a fish, so it was a bit of I was unsure, and then everyone was like, "Oh, it just makes sense to call it flower." So anyway, that's how it got the name.
That is probably the most sensible name you could give a fish that is caught by yourself.
Yeah, so it's now it feels weird then when other anglers now. Obviously, it's weird when I come here and people are fishing the lake anyway, because knowing that you're sort of a part of the lake. But then when they actually go ahead and our anglers have caught flower and you see their big smile on their face, it's like to know that I named it and I was the first to catch it out of this lake. It was it's quite a nice thing, and it's good to. I like seeing other anglers catch it and seeing the enjoyment they get out of catching fish. It's nice.
So we know that you're a big match angler and you've won for carp, that is, and you've won many competitions. But what tip would you give someone like myself or anyone starting up match angling? What tip would you give them?
For match angling, first of all, you've got to want to do it, if that makes sense. Basically, there's a lot of people out there who look at it like they just look at it as like you can win X amount of money. Yeah, you can win money in matches and stuff. Yeah, for sure. But you've got to be committed. A lot of people just sort of rock up, they'll fish one match and think, you can win and that. You've got to have a bit of luck as well. You've got to get a good draw, but the main thing that I say is commitment. You've got to be committed and you've got to put everything into it. And what I mean by that is the main thing is preparation. That's the absolutely vital.
Okay.
If you don't prepare for a match, unless you can kind of rock up and you might fluke a few out, you've got to be prepared, i.e. rigs, having numerous, but you've got to have literally the kitchen sink in your van, because if somebody like next door is catching on a tactic that you haven't got, you can be stuffed for the whole match. But if you've got it and you can adapt quickly, that's probably, it's a preparation and adapting quickly to what you see, and it does help you in your normal fishing as well.
So how do you start your setting up of your match?
In a match?
Yeah.
To be honest, even if I know the venue or I don't know the venue, one of my first things, just because it's very quick and easy, is to probably start on a solid bag. Just because a solid bag, doesn't matter even if you don't know the venue, you can punch a solid bag out, either from close range to a very long range as well, in the right hands, and you're just fishing. Like, you know what I mean? It's not, your rig's concealed in a bag, it lands. Yeah, right, if you're in heavy weed, it's not fishing the best, but it doesn't matter where it lands, and you've got a chance for a bite. And then we tend to do that for the first few hours, and then we sort of suss out the water, and then we might start having a little feature find and see what's out there. But because the nicest thing with a match, it's always pressure to get that first fish on the board.
Yes, of course.
And it's that confidence boost. As soon as you've got a bite and you've got a fish on the board, you're like, it just gives you that boost, and you start getting in the zone.
And you know that everything's working.
Exactly. So if you can just nip light, and that's a lot of match anglers tend to do it now, it's just like put a few bags out just to try and nick a bite. And like I say, once you're on that ball, then you can start expanding, exploring the water, test the water, what you've got, find some spots and spot up a little spot, or get them going on the zigs or floaters.
And some people are not too sure what the difference is from carp angling, like we're doing today, and match carp angling, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's not a great deal in it. Well, it's just, you're still carp fishing, but you're just fishing for numbers. Whereas, like, when people say like normal carp fishing, they might associate with sitting there for days on end and just sort of trying to, without being nasty, bore a fish out. Do you know what I mean? Bore a good fish. Like some people, and it's taking nothing away against anyone like that, because people caught some brilliant fish.
Oh, of course.
But obviously, if you've got time on your hands, where with a match situation, basically, so you're allocated a peg, and you've only got the water, what's in front of you, so you just got to make the best of it. Like sometimes you can be lucky and get a chunk of water where there's load of fish there from the start, so it's not as bad. But you can be up against it, and you can be in an end where you think, I really don't fancy this, and you just got to, where normal carp fishing, you can get up and move and you can make something happen. In a match situation,
you've got that one peg,
you've got that little chunk of water, and you've just got to do the best what you can do. And you normally got 4 rods, so you can sort of fan around, but if the fish are not going to move in that area, you're up against it from the start.
Do you believe that that's one of the biggest differences between
between match, yeah, for sure, because like I say, you've got to make the most of the water you've got. Where in normal fishing, you can get up, you can move, you can go around and have a little stalk up, you can go wander around and find out who's doing what, and you can sneak in a little bit here and there, or you might be able to trickle some bait in and keep watching it. Like I say, you can't do that in a match. You have to stick to to your swim there, and that's you. That is what you've got in front of you.
So now we're going to be moving on slightly to Carp Dreams top 5 killer questions. And now number 1 is, what one tip would you give a young angler to really bring their level of fishing up?
One tip, what, to get bites?
Yeah, to get more bites and, yeah.
Right, to get bites, I'd say the most important tip I would give is filling the lead down.
Yeah.
So obviously when you're casting, always filling that lead down, because you can read so much under the water without actually a marker rod, just with your fishing rod with a lead. So as you cast, I mean, it takes a bit of experience, and the more you just cast around, but as soon as if you can judge or feel what that lead's hitting, like as it goes down, you can actually gauge the depth of the water. And you can gauge what you're fishing on just by one cast, and if you know that you're fishing and it's clear and your rig's presented, me personally, I think that's most of the battle, because as long as you can present a rig in what a fish is going to feed on, because if it's absolutely choked in weed and you're just plugging it out there and it could be plugged for hours, you're not fishing.
Of course.
If you're fishing on a clear area, then yeah, you've mainly won the battle.
What about today, where it's a wind day and it's quite hard? What tip would you give to help with that?
Today, I mean, Myths is a little bit harder, especially when it's windy, because it's a shallower water. So you've really got to stop the clip perfect, like stop the lead in flight. So just before the lead hits the water, you have to nearly trap it straight away, because it's shallow. Because if you trap it too late, you sort of don't get a drop, because it's only a couple of feet deep. But we're in the wind, so it is harder. There's no real proper tip really, apart from, like I say, just trapping the lead just before it hits the water, before it hits the surface, and then just filling it down with your finger. But it's something that you just have to learn over time. And with the wind, like I say, you just have to try your best as much as you can, but it is harder even for younger anglers or more experienced anglers. It is with that wind and the bow in the line, and if it is a shallower lake as well, like I say, you've got to trap it straight away. Because if you leave it, before you know it's hit the deck, and then you're like, oh, I didn't get a drop.
Oh, I didn't feel it.
Exactly, yeah, but you've missed it basically. So it's just judging it, and it's not, if you can get a drop though, I definitely feel that's a very good tip for all anglers.
So the next one, question 2, is what 2 rigs do you like using the most, and what 2 rigs would you take anywhere?
My go anywhere rigs would be, so actual rig wise or tactic rig wise, would be my one rig that I would pretty much take anywhere is like a blowback rig, just with so I just use a simple shrink tube kicker with a blowback rig, and then my second, that would be for pretty much all my bottom bait fishing. Use it on pop-ups now and again, but normally I tend to use a multi-rig for a pop-up. My second rig, go anywhere rig, because they're so devastating, and they're very good fishing in the right light. If you fish them right and get the depths right, it would be probably a zig rig.
Yes, definitely.
For my matches and for normal fishing, just because it's surprising how many anglers neglect using a zig rig, especially if you go out on boats a lot or you watch fish feeding. When you actually see that majority of fish spend most of the time sort of mid-depth or up in the layers, it's sort of a no-brainer that, like, everyone thinks, I'll put your rod on the deck.
That's where they all feed, but if there's something there already,
if they're already cruising at mid-water, they're kind of telling you that they're sitting at mid-water. So if you've got a zig presented there, it's perfect.
And sometimes they're too lazy to go down to the bottom, so if you have it there already, they're like, oh, okay, I'll eat that.
Yeah, and even bigger fish as well, or like going back to pop-up, and when you said about they're too lazy to go to the bottom, some big fish are actually physically too big to feed hard on the deck, so you might want like a little mini zig or some form of trod or something, yeah, because they actually feed like at a tilted angle upright.
Yeah.
They're literally just too big to hoover up on the bottom. They have to feed like up. It's mad when you see it sometimes, and you've probably seen it on some underwater footage as well. But yeah, when you actually see some fish feeding and you actually look, and they're just literally too big to feed on the deck. It does make you think sometimes that sort of like little mini zigs, like even like little foot zigs, are just as effective.
They're like swimming pigs, they can't get down to the bottom.
Yeah, they just can't get themselves down there. So.
Right, so the next one's quite an important one for young anglers like myself. It's considering we don't have not unlimited, but a salary and a budget.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a budget, but only a smaller one. What's the most important piece of equipment to spend that money on?
Most important piece of equipment, I would say, would be your end tackle. And the reason I say that is because I take it you mean like, would you go and spend more money on rods and reels and that sort of thing, lums and whatever?
We're specifically pointing one thing, so what about your end tackle? Would you spend most of it on?
Right, okay, yeah, in that case I'd say hooks.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, that's the vital piece of the puzzle.
That's what's going in their mouth.
Exactly,
so.
yeah, if you're going to sort of go for a cheaper budget, a hook, or something that you don't trust as much, you want to make sure it's ultra sharp, and you want to go with a company or a pattern of a hook that you have got 100% confidence in, because if you haven't got 100% confidence in it and you do get a bite and it either it kinks over or it snaps or goes blunt, then you're going to be kicking yourself thinking, why did I do that? Because just for the sake of maybe saving an extra pound on a pack of hooks or
a decent pack of hooks.
Yeah, or I mean, so you definitely hooks. If you're going for one particular item, I'd say hooks, because like you said, it's the piece of metal that's going in the mouth. That's what's connecting that fish from you to getting it in the bank on your. So if that hook ain't in properly, and it's by far the most important piece, I think. So
what company do you rely the most on, or what company do you use the most?
Well, I mean, I'm actually I'm a sponsored angler, so I do always use Calder, but like I say, admittedly, it's even if I wasn't sponsored, I think I would always, I know I would always use Calder, because I've had every fish I've caught over the years, like in the last few years, has been on Calder hooks. You do, as a rule, like you might get a couple out of the pack, and you're sort of like, you look and go, I'm not 100% sure, but you might get one out of a pack. Like if you tested 10 packs of hooks, you might get one that you're like, not a bit unsure. But always I do is just put that to one side, because as soon as I get them out of the hook, I always test them on now anyway, as long as it digs in my nail, and you can normally look at a hook and just sort of eye it up and you'll see that it's sharp. As long as you know it's sharp and you're happy, then I'll put it out. But like I say, my favourite pattern of hook though would just be the standard wide gate that Calder do. It's caught me fish literally all over the world. It's
got a big area, so it holds them out. It holds it in.
Yeah, and and like I say, it's just so reliable. It's just a nice pattern. It's not too. It's enough to hold the fish, and it's not too big and bulky in their face. And like I say, it's just caught me fish all around the world, and I've got 100% confidence in it.
Right, so the next one is, as a young angler, we're at school during the week, or at college or university. So that means that we have to fish after school or in the weekend.
Yeah.
And those are normally the times that the lakes are normally packed and quite busy. How do you approach that sort of water?
A busy lake. So basically, if a lake's busy, which a lot of my fishing is actually done on like some day ticket lakes, which so they tend to be the busier lakes more so than some syndicates. The first thing is finding fish. If you can find fish and get on them, then like I say, You're halfway there, yeah. So if you can find the fish, if you're just turning up blind and no one's really seen much or you can't see much, then I would just go with a little and often approach and just fish for a bite. Because you see so many times when it's packed and somebody doesn't really know much about the lake, and they'll happily just plow up in the corner, and then they'll go out there and like spot 2-3 buckets of bait out there, and they sort of think, all right, if you know there's fish there and you know they're going to feed it, and it all depends as well. If it's a heavily stocked lake, then that's fine. If they get on the grub, then you're laughing. But if it's not, my personal thing would to try and get a bite. Just fish for a bite at a time. And like I say, unless it's a heavily stocked lake and you know you're going to get multiple hits, then that's a different story. You can work a bit of baiting, but like going back to your original question, like if it was a pressured water and you want to just try and nick a bite, I would just go and fishing for a bite at a time. What I mean by that is just fishing little bits and pieces, bags, little sticks, and then just trying to slot in where you can. And then obviously the nice thing as well, if you can go around and ask and people are letting you know where's coming out, then that's a bit of a help as well. But if they're going to be secret squirrel, then you're going to have to do it all on your own, unfortunately.
But we've got one last question, and this is the viewer's favourite, and there's been quite a big expectation so far. But what's the weirdest bait you've caught a fish on?
Weirdest bait, that would have to be a yellow, I think they used to be called opal fruits. I think they might be called starburst now. They changed over the years, but we was actually fishing. It was myself and Jamie was fishing a match in America on the St. Lawrence River. Don't get me wrong, it's a very heavily stocked piece of water, and we fished a match, and we was actually successful, and we done okay in that match. And the day after, so we had the presentation and everything. The day after, because it was just for a bit of fun before we went home, we kind of said, like, we'll go there and just see how many fish we can have in a morning session. And we was getting a good few bites, and then we was that convinced that they get so preoccupied on yellow that we was like, we're just going to try some mad yellows, whatever thing we get. And there was a little local, I think there was a Walmart at the time just up the road. We got these big bag of like starburst, or like I say, it might have been called opal fruits then. And we air rigged the yellow one up for them. And I think we had like 2 or 3 fish on the bounce on it. And I think eventually we had to get packed and get the plane home because we was due home that day. But so that is the weirdest thing I've had it on, and it was not plugged or dipped or anything, just a plain yellow square starburst bait.
They do smell those starbursts, so I can understand how it's homed in.
Yeah, I think it's just at the time out there, and it probably still is now, because it's a brilliant piece of play. It's a brilliant water, that river, St. Lawrence. It was literally they'd see so much maize out there and yellow pineapple boilies that it was just like as soon as they see something
that's yellow as well, that's food.
They just know that it's grub, and they love it.
Well, thank you for that. I hope my viewers have gained so many tips. I certainly have. We're going to go carry on fishing, and hopefully we can bag a beauty from this pool. Hey guys, Bailey here from Carp Dreams, and we've had to come in the bivvy. It's so bad. The weather's absolutely terrible, as you can tell. I've looked at it. But we've had weather warnings, and it's the beginning of June. How can that happen? But Billy's gone into his bivvy, I've gone into mine. But before that, we had a quick discussion just after the interview, and we thought, do you know what, we're going to come back in a couple of weeks after he finishes his match in Slovenia to really show you what Smith Pool's all about and some of the stunts in here, hopefully. we're going to show you some of the wildlife around and just show you how this has really progressed since before. Billy's also going to give us a few tips and tricks to get these sneaky carp out. See you next time on Carp Dreams. I hope you enjoyed.